Have you ever found yourself dismissing your needs like, I don't really need that, or I've got this, when really deep down your heart is asking you to receive more? Well, today we are talking about the difference of when we need to be able to empower ourselves versus when we need to open ourselves to receive. And receiving is a gift of the divine that we are all meant to experience. So let's get started.
Welcome to the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, a place for the strong, sensitive, spiritual seeker to recognize the perfection of your human journey as a pathway to remembering your divinity. I am Michelle Bursell. As a psychotherapist and priestess, my work is to bridge both the emotional and spiritual worlds through proven and grounded frameworks that support you to live in the wholeness you already are. For over the past 2 decades, I have supported people from all around the world, as well as Fortune 500 companies, to dissolve the divisions within them and live with greater empowerment and love. This podcast is an exploration of the paradoxes that befuddle us as we live our lives being both human and divine. Together, you and I, along with other experts, will navigate integrating psychology and spirituality, the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the darkness and the light, to create greater sacred union from within. I believe through your remembering that you are innately divine, that you will allow yourself to more openly shine. So let's get to it, because your unique light is needed more than ever.
Hello, beautiful soul. Thank you so much for joining me. This episode of I'm Perfectly Divine, I am getting into how I've been being guided to receive more, and really how I'm finding ways that I'm impeding myself from receiving. And so it's been really interesting as I take a step back, because I see this conflict between a part of me that has learned to say, I've got this. And we think that I've got this means that we're empowered. And what I'm reflecting on is that absolutely it can be empowered, but it can also hinder me from receiving, because just that notion of like, I have got this means that I'm not asking for help. I'm not asking for support. So that's where I'm inviting us to go this week, is really to hold both, and as I've been talking about, that need of shifting from either or, that one way is correct and the other way is wrong, but really seeing how we are being guided through our human experiences to learn how to navigate our life and these tools that we've gained along the way, and see when they're working, when they're appropriate, and when they aren't. And so for me, as well as I think most of us, we can tell if a tool that we are using, a skill that we are using, isn't fitting, because negative emotions will arise exactly because something is out of place. It's not working how it can best operate for us. And so this is my experience of where I'm just really watching. I'm watching the ways where I've been holding this sense of trying to work around having my needs met. Like, I should be over needing this, whatever, on the external, or I'm okay, or it's not this need that I really need. It's something else. There's something else going on, right? And so I am giving excuses to my needs rather than listen to them. And for me, this is very unconscious, again, until our emotions arise. My emotions arise and they're sad, or something feels off, or I'm getting frustrated. And it's really helping me to navigate what is my hesitancy with receiving more. And so for me, this has taken me through the different phases that I've gone through, because it's really interesting to be at this place of really reclaiming my needs and saying, yeah, I have these needs and I'm asking for support around these needs when there was a time where I was very needy in an unhealthy way. And so I'm looking at this as a psychological map in ways of not feeling that neediness from earlier stages in my life in the same way, but now coming full circle to being like, wait, I have needs. And so what's the difference between this part of me that was really needy and or do I have shame around being needy? Because when I was needy and it was coming from an unhealthy place, there were times that I was shamed for it, not because that there's anything wrong with us when we're in that state of neediness, but when we're that clingy needy, it's because we're looking outside of ourselves for someone else to try to resolve the discomfort the of aspects of ourselves that we haven't learned to receive. And we're like, you over there can fix this for me, or me having something outside of myself over here will fix it for me. And so there's a part of me that's very careful that I don't want to go back to that, but then really looking at again how my negative feelings now are showing me, well, this is how you may be pushing away your needs. And what is this about? So that's what I'm going to invite us to explore because being human, we are going to have needs. And we're also going to have psychological aspects to ourselves where we feel needy. And I think this all starts from when we're young. We do have a neediness because we literally rely on our parents for to survive, but we're also relying on them psychologically. And so, especially if you are emotionally sensitive, you turn to your parents for approval. I think we all do, but especially if you're emotionally sensitive, you're tuning in and you can feel how they really feel about something or about how you're behaving or what have you without them saying anything. You can feel it, right? And so you're that much more prone to feeling rejected. And then when we feel more rejected, the more needy we become because we want that approval because we don't know how to give it to ourselves yet. And so we all go through this on some level, and some people try to rebel with that and say, I don't need anyone or anything. And then we end up defensive and living on an island, or certainly we're pushing away more than we are meant to. We're meant to receive so much more because that's just a protective mechanism, right? So we don't want to be in that place, but we of course have grown from this place of looking for our parents' approval, and then we're going to get rejected because our parents are human. They've got their own needs. And so we go about our lives in the beginning trying to avoid rejection, but rejection is a part of life, right? And we know this, but it's like, it's just human that we can still feel the sting of rejection. I mean, it was interesting because a neighbor was having a going away party and we weren't invited. And so this is like directly my neighbor. We aren't super close, but we share like when the moon is rising over the lake. And I helped her out when her husband was in the hospital, helping her take out her dogs or whatever. So, I mean, it was just weird that, you know, we weren't invited to her going away party. And there was that initial sting of rejection. And what I noticed right away was there was this voice saying to me, did I do something wrong? Did I do something wrong to quote unquote deserve being rejected? And so I think people who are on this emotional or psychological path would say, well, we need to get over that. But I feel like we want to we don't want to blame ourselves, right, that we've done something wrong unless someone tells us, hey, you you messed up here or what have you. But we do want to be able to understand that we need each other. And so pretending that we never experience a sting of rejection to me is pretending that our humanity and connection with one another doesn't matter. It still does. And it's because we want to be in community with each other. And I think it's more important than ever, especially as we are living more online, separate lives. And so we want to be able to take in that part while also empowering ourselves, right? We don't want the sting of rejection to disempower us where we can't function, or where we truly think that there's something wrong with us, right? I mean, this is a part of life is learning to empower ourselves. You are going to get rejected from a job at some point. You are going to get rejected from a date, or you'll get rejected from a party invite, right? And so it's really being able to say, I'm okay. This didn't happen. I'm fine. It's no big deal. And to really mean that and to have that skill, right? Like it is no big deal. I've got this. Okay. And so what's the difference though of when we can say like, I've really got this and versus knowing, I need help. And for me, this is where I wanted to dig in. And I mapped this out by understanding four different phases that I think we go through, which is neediness. Just again, children, we actually need our parents to survive physically, psychologically. Then we go through a state of empowering ourselves because we have to empower ourselves because we're going to face rejection. Then there is a dissolution where things that need to go that are actually inhibiting us from knowing our innate lovability and worth begin to dissolve and then to lead us back to greater expansiveness. So the in that initial stage of neediness, this is when we are unknowingly using the external to validate ourselves. And usually we have no freaking clue that we're doing this, right? Like when I so desperately wanted to be in a relationship and to find my soulmate, it was to prove my lovability, but I had no idea that's what I was doing. I just thought I was like every normal human person that wanted to find their partner, right? And so the part that was off was that I thought I had to perform to be the good partner, be the good girlfriend, to be lovable enough. And it was through the pain of rejection and relationships not working out that I learned that my messy, complex self was completely worthy of the ultimate love that I wanted. So, right there is the cycle of the neediness, and then I'm in the mess, and it starts to question some of the beliefs that I have in order that I can receive more and have more expansiveness. Same thing happened when I was trying to build my business. I needed to make money to prove that I was good at what I was doing. And so my empowered self was all about, here I'm going to get shit done and prove myself and prove my worth to the world, and try to do all these things that I thought looked great on the outside. And it was when it came crashing down where I learned that my messy, complex self was inherently worthy. And so this is part of that cycle that we go through to reclaim our truth. So the disillusion is when things that aren't meant to stay go away. And they go away because they are not for our highest good. But when it's happening, our ego clings on, saying, I don't know how I'm going to function without this thing in my life. And this is where I turned to a message recently that I heard from the late Wayne Dyer, who said, you're not here to become more. You're here to become less, less afraid, less attached, less identifying with the wounds that you believe that you have so that you remember your truth. And I love that. And that is definitely part of the disillusion phase. The universe keeps tearing things down, not to punish us, but to help us to receive even more than we can comprehend when we know our inherent worth and lovability, because that's when our hearts are so open to who we are. And I'm so excited because there's more and more studies coming out about how our brain waves change when our hearts are open, and how we are changing our reality as our hearts are open. And we can get to these meditative states that open our hearts. But to me, it's the day-to-day practice of how our humanity is guiding us with our emotions to keep our hearts open, right? Because, yeah, when we're like meditating by a candle and nobody's bothering us, it's easy to have our hearts open. But when we're facing those conflicts where we don't feel seen, when we do feel rejected, or we have a need that is going unmet, how do we continue to receive rather than close off? And so this was the interesting thing to me, because what I was realizing is that during the disillusion phase, I had to get to this point to soothe myself, really, to be able to say, I've got this. I've got this, so that I could keep going, so that I could keep making one step forward at a time. And now I'm seeing how I've got this actually isn't true. Like, as much as I want to lean into my empowered self, sometimes I need help. Sometimes I need more support. And so, how do we tell the difference, right? Because we need to know how to stand up for ourselves and know our inherent worthiness and our abilities. And we need to know that we're worthy enough to also receive support, even as we even know our inherent worth, right? Our inherent worth says, yeah, I need support. And it's good to ask for support and to receive. So, can I and you and we expand our hearts to say that our desires matter, that they might get rejected, but we're going to be okay if they are, because we're not asking this from a place of, I need this to prove my worth. We're asking this because a part of us is saying, it would feel good to me to receive more. And that, I think, is a huge difference that gets missed, whether we're talking about manifestation or just being able to have more from life, even when our life is so damn good. And so, in my day-to-day experiences, this has shown up by feeling received or not by others. And this has been from my husband, my family, to my doctor, to a tech person in my business, right? I've seen ways where I've tried to dodge asking for what I really wanted to go along with how things are, because how things are, again, are pretty damn good, even though what my emotions are telling me is that it's not entirely working for me. And so, am I willing to lean into that? Or am I going to continue to use my thinking rational mind to say, I have nothing to complain about, I shouldn't ask for more, when clearly there's something coming through for a reason? Now, that reason is either for us to look at, am I unknowingly turning to this person or to this external thing that I desire, again, to prove my lovability or to prove my worth? Or is it that there's something that I'm meant to receive more of, but I need to be able to stand in that? And that is part of owning. our worthiness and our lovability, not from an ego place, but from knowing that when we are able to receive more, we are so filled in a way that it overflows. And so there's a ripple effect that we are being asked to be a part of, but we have to walk our talk and be in the vibration and the resonance of what it means to own our worth. And we have to be able to stand in that by asking for our needs to be met and then seeing what arises within that other person and that experience. So there is a validation that we need sometimes as humans, or it feels good to us as humans. So for me, my doctor had a treatment plan for me, and it was not working for me. And so I had to tell her that I've tried it her way, and this is how I feel. And she was like, I just want you to know, I hear you. I hear your symptoms. And she was willing to work with me. That's different from doctors that I've experienced where they're like, nope, this is what your test results say. I know best. Like, it felt such a relief to have someone be willing to work with me and what my body was feeling and to be in my truth and be able to be received in that way. So that validation means that we can work together, that we see one another. And it's not, I've got this, because I didn't. It wasn't feeling good. I could keep moving forward. I wasn't on my deathbed, but I'm just not, wasn't feeling my best. So that's to me where my heart is saying, do you want to know where people are at? You want to know if people are willing to work with you. If you are willing to see them and work with them, are they willing to do the same with you? Because life is so much easier for us when someone's willing to work with us. And it tells you something when they aren't. And from my experience, where I've had the energy of not being received, I know what it's like. And you know what it's like not being received. It feels like you're fighting to get your needs met. And that's exhausting versus the expansiveness of like, oh my gosh, someone gets where I'm at. Even if they don't entirely get it, they get it from the heart. They know what it's like when things feel off. And so, what's interesting about this whole thing is that it led me to this path about this notion of altruism, being altruistic. I don't feel personally that this was a trait that I was naturally born with having. And I've always looked at awe with people who have this. And have looked at for years the prayer of St. Francis, and I'll repeat it in a second so that we are all on the same page about what it's saying. But the prayer is so beautiful, and it has made me tear up because I'm like, I don't know if I could ever be the altruism that this prayer of St. Francis is asking me to be, right? I didn't think I was capable of what the prayer is guiding us to do. So let me read it here so we know what I'm talking about. Prayer of St. Francis. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, where there is error, I may bring truth, where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. And it's this last line. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life that I believe is key. And it's not a physical death, it's the ego death to awaken to the love that we innately are, to know that there is nothing internally missing. And we know that within our hearts. And that's what I so appreciate about people who are genuinely altruistic. It's because they are so filled from within that there's an overflow to give. And, and they know that their needs are always met. And I think we forget about this because I, in fact, believe that they assume their needs will be met in order that they can keep on giving. And they have no shame in receiving. I think of one of the most altruistic people is Mother Teresa, and she did not say, I've got this. She counted on others to provide for her as she fulfills her life mission. So why wouldn't it be any different for us? This to me is so important because being altruistic isn't about not having needs or pushing them aside. We have hunger pains, sexual desires, money needs, and these are there to fuel us, to enliven us, to support us. We've been told by religions to ignore these human aspects in order to become more altruistic. And we have seen firsthand that when people try to live that way, it creates total upheaval in their lives because they try to deny something that the divine we are built to receive. And then they go about trying to meet those needs in unhealthy ways. Right. And we see that and have seen that in church leaders. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just understanding that this interpretation, I think, about altruism and foregoing our needs isn't really how we get to that altruistic heart, I don't believe. What's very clear to me is that the divine wants us to receive all of life. We are born as these beautiful vessels to receive pleasures in life, literally built that way. Why? Why would we be built as vessels that have certain sensories that allow us to receive just pleasure? Because it's a way to overfill our hearts. And when our hearts are overfilled, we easily give to others when they are in pain, when they are challenged, when they are suffering. This is how we gain compassion for others in duress, is being able to be with ourselves when we have our challenges, when we have our needs. And so while it is counterintuitive, I believe that we are guided through negative emotions to let us know when we are pushing away the very things we desire to receive. Exactly because the divine wants for us to be filled. The divine wants our desires to be fulfilled, wants us to experience pleasure and shower us with love. I mean, isn't that like the definition of the divine to you? That is just so filled with love. And so, of course, the divine wants us to experience that. Now, I know if you're in that place of disillusion where I was, and it kept like you're hitting a wall, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like the divine is trying to push against you and push against you receiving anything ever again. But what the divine is trying to redirect us to is that the way we are going about it isn't working for us. And so we keep hitting a wall. And if you're like me and you're stubborn and your ego's taken over, you beat the shit out of yourself hitting that wall over and over and over again. That's how stubborn my ego has been until I'm flat on the ground, defeated. And that's when I get held and you get held by the divine that will miraculously pick our sorry asses up. I'll speak for myself. Pick my sorry ass up and say, girl, what have you been doing? Aren't you tired of doing it that way? It says, here's the way. And it's so much more filled with love and compassion than I ever imagined because I didn't know my innate worth, my innate lovability. So I thought it had to be hard. So the divine wants to fill us. And if we are feeling that it's just the opposite, please don't take it that like you're hitting the wall. That means you're doing something wrong. We all do it that way because, again, it's part of our journey to go from I'm needy to I'm empowering myself. And so the wall is our empowerment. We're like, okay, I can do all this. I can be altruistic, I can give, I can be super person and but it's through that empowerment that's trying to prove ourselves as worthy that the disillusion has to come so we innately know our inherent worth. So I invite you to think of it less of I'm doing something wrong and more of I'm being shown a different way that's more loving. And it's it that doing it that way of proving yourself was so important. You needed to build that resilience. You needed to know how to get through rejection and pick yourself back up after someone doesn't want to date you, someone doesn't want to hire you. You needed that. So you are not doing anything wrong. It's just we hang on to the old ways when we're in a new phase. And that's where we're being guided to move along a different way. So what I love about the disillusion ultimately is that it's trying to guide us to receive the overflow of love that is meant for us because of innately who we are. And this allows us to be naturally altruistic because this is how there is a natural overflow of the love that's coming from our hearts that we will naturally then want others to experience because it's so dang good. Because we've been so blessed to experience and we want others to experience that as well. And that's the difference between the ego saying, I've got this, versus we need one another to support each other so we can remain filled while filling one another. And we see this all the time in parenthood, right? Parents naturally have to be altruistic and give up their needs to support their kids. But we need each other to help each other out to get there. For me, since the beginning, when I was a mom, I knew I would never be able to fulfill this role that is sometimes put on a pedestal as the selfless mother. Like I just know I'm not built for this. I have needs. And so my boundary was that every morning I needed the space to meditate, to pray, because this was how I fueled myself. And that's how I could then give to my children in a way that felt in alignment. And I felt good and I felt, mostly, right? And of course, still had my days where I didn't. But for the most part, that's what would fill my spirit, fill my essence so that I was able to give to my children. So much so that on the days that I would be like, I'll just skip it, I'll sleep in, what have you, my husband would be like, okay, cranky one, please go upstairs and meditate for a few minutes. So we all knew that it was for the betterment of everyone if I went to meditate, right? So for someone like me, where altruism doesn't come firsthand, where I've read that serenity prayer not the Serenity Prayer, Prayer of St. Francis, and thought, I still seek to be understood and to be comforted. Like, how will I ever become the opposite? And then, thought that being understood or comforted was wrong. What I'm finding is that it's not in diminishing our needs, but listening to them, receiving them, because the divine wants each of us to overflow with love, not through denying any aspect of ourselves, but through bringing ourselves understanding. And this is why I say it's so important for us to utilize every emotion as a guide to know ourselves. Because when you know and understand yourself, then it is so, so much easier to comfort and understand and love another without needing it in return. Because you've connected with the living source within you that is guiding you to have your needs met both within you and around you. And we don't have to deny any of it. You can easily give because you are overflowing with being filled from within, based on both how you have internally remembered more and more the love that you innately are, and by having the grace, the generosity, and the loving givingness of others blessing you and your life. It's not an either or. This is the path away from, tit for tat, this for that. It's allowing ourselves to live in overflow in all ways and allow the guidance of our hearts to direct that overflow onto others, knowing that their hearts will then guide them to do the same as their hearts become full. So I'm going to leave us with the beauty and wisdom of Bruno Mars' lyrics, Treasure. Treasure, that is what you are. Honey, you're my golden star. You know you can make my wish come true if you let me treasure you. That, to me, is what the divine is saying. Let me treasure you. You can make the divine's wishes come true as the divine works through you as you, if you allow the divine to treasure you just as you are. So until next time, know that there is nothing to fix, just to remember, and you are a treasure, and the divine wants to treasure you.
I am so honored you have joined me today. If you enjoyed the I'm Perfectly Divine podcast, subscribe so you don't miss any of our power-filled episodes. Also, if you know another who is strong, sensitive, and spiritual and wants to dive deeper into emotions and ancient wisdom so they too can create profound peace and fulfillment from within, please share this podcast. Thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to reconnecting with you soon.